The restaurant was filled with soft music and the quiet chatter of well-dressed guests. The lights were warm, reflecting off the polished wooden tables, and the smell of fresh food floated through the air. Among the servers, one young man moved carefully between the tables, carrying trays and taking orders. He did his job silently, always polite and reserved, never drawing attention to himself. He had been working here for a few years now, and although the restaurant was full of wealthy and important people, he remained unnoticed, almost invisible. That evening, a wealthy woman arrived with a group of friends. She was known in the city for her elegance, her expensive taste, and her love of being the center of attention. People admired her, and some even feared her because she had the power to judge and embarrass others without a second thought. Tonight, she was dressed in a striking outfit, and every eye in the room seemed to follow her as she walked to her reserved table. She sat down, glanced at the menu briefly, but she was not really there for the food. She was there for entertainment. As the waiter approached to take her order, she noticed him standing quietly nearby. He was tall, with a calm expression, and his eyes moved carefully over the guests and the room. Something about him caught her attention, not in a way that she admired, but in a way that sparked her curiosity. She leaned toward her friends and whispered, just loud enough for them to hear, that she was going to have a little fun with him tonight. Her friends laughed, sensing the playful yet sharp energy in her voice. When she called the waiter over, she spoke with a voice full of charm but carrying an edge of mockery. She asked him if he knew how to play chess. The young man blinked, caught off guard. He had played chess a lot in his life, but he never expected this. He nodded politely, saying he did know. Her friends giggled softly, sensing the power play about to unfold. She stood up, inviting him to come closer. Everyone at nearby tables started to watch. Some were curious, others amused. She made a playful joke, pretending to worry that he might be too weak to even understand the rules. The waiter's face remained calm. He did not laugh or react to her teasing. He simply followed her to a small table that had a chessboard on it, set up for anyone who wanted to play during their wait. The woman sat across from him, her eyes sparkling with amusement and challenge. She moved her pieces with exaggerated confidence, as if she already knew she would win. Her friends whispered to each other, excited to watch the young waiter fail. The waiter studied the board silently, his fingers resting lightly on the pieces. He did not make a move immediately. He took a deep breath and observed the position, thinking carefully. The room was quiet now, and all attention had shifted to the tiny table in the corner. As the game began, the woman smiled smugly, making small comments that were meant to poke fun at him. She laughed when he moved a piece cautiously and made playful remarks when he considered his options. The waiter stayed focused, his eyes moving from the board to her, and then back again. He did not respond to her mockery. There was a quiet confidence about him, a calmness that seemed to make the people around feel the tension in the air. Her friends whispered among themselves, entertained by the unfolding scene. The woman continued to act as if she were in complete control, enjoying the feeling of power she had over someone she considered beneath her. She leaned back, moved her knight, and announced her supposed brilliant strategy. The waiter nodded slightly, then made his move. It was subtle, but there was a sharpness in his choice. He was not playing for amusement. He was playing with skill and precision. She paused, noticing that her opponent was not reacting as expected. The room seemed to hold its breath. The waiter's moves became more confident as the game continued. The woman's smile faltered slightly when she realized he was thinking several steps ahead. She tried to regain her dominance with jokes and laughter, but the waiter's calm demeanor never broke. He did not respond to her provocations. He simply focused on the game, analyzing the board and planning his strategy. People at nearby tables started to notice the change. Some leaned in to watch more closely. The initial mockery in the woman's eyes began to fade as she saw the determination and skill in his moves. Despite the difference in their social status, the chessboard became a level field. No one could judge anyone based on money or looks here. The only thing that mattered was the game, and in this game, skill and strategy spoke louder than wealth or arrogance. The waiter made a move that was unexpected but precise, forcing the woman to pause and consider her options. She frowned slightly, realizing that he was not a simple target for her amusement. She glanced at her friends, who were now silent, sensing the shift in the situation. The young man did not seek attention or praise. He did not boast about his skill. He simply played the game with quiet focus. Each move he made was calculated, and slowly the tide began to turn. The woman's laughter became nervous, and her smug comments turned into questions about what move to make next. Her friends looked at each other in surprise. The table that started as a source of entertainment for the wealthy woman was now a stage where she was unsure of herself. The waiter's calmness and skill began to capture the attention of the other diners as well. People whispered quietly among themselves, impressed by the unexpected turn of events. The woman, who had come here to mock and enjoy her power over someone she thought was beneath her, now found herself caught in a game she could not dominate so easily. Her confidence was challenged, and for the first time in a long while she felt uncertainty. As the game continued, the room became quiet except for the soft sounds of chess pieces being moved and the occasional murmurs of astonishment from those watching. The waiter's focused expression and steady hands contrasted with the woman's growing tension. She tried to think ahead, but each time she planned a move, he anticipated it and countered skillfully. Her friends, who had come expecting amusement, were now on the edge of their seats, fascinated by the unexpected talent of the young man. By the end of the evening, the first part of the story had set the stage. The wealthy woman had learned that appearances could be deceiving, that quiet and humble people might hold surprising skills, and that power and wealth did not always guarantee control. The waiter, on the other hand, remained calm, polite and focused, unaware of the attention he had drawn simply by being himself. It was the beginning of a story that would leave everyone watching stunned. A story where humility, skill, and patience would challenge arrogance and pride in a way no one in the restaurant would forget. While the restaurant slowly returned to its usual hum, the young waiter quietly returned to his tasks. His calm and steady presence continued to impress the diners, though few truly understood the depth of his mind. Behind his reserved expression, there was a story that few could imagine. He had not always been a waiter, and his life before this job had been filled with challenges, sacrifices, and quiet brilliance. Years ago, he had been known in his hometown as a talented chess player. He had spent hours studying openings, middle game tactics, and endgame strategies. His skill was recognized in local and regional tournaments, and people often praised his sharp mind and natural intuition for the game. Chess was more than a hobby. It had been his passion and a way to express his intelligence and creativity. He had dreams of competing at the national level, of being recognized for his talent and possibly even coaching others. But life had its own plans. His family had faced hardships that required his immediate attention. A parent had fallen ill, and the medical bills quickly piled up. He had a younger sibling who needed support and guidance. With no one else to help, he made the difficult decision to put his dreams aside. Chess became a quiet memory, a skill tucked away and rarely mentioned. He took whatever work he could find to support his family, and the restaurant job became a steady source of income. It was honest work, but it did not reflect the full breadth of his talent and intelligence. Despite the sacrifices, he never lost his love for chess. During his breaks at the restaurant, he would sometimes watch others play or quietly think about positions and strategies in his mind. The chessboard in the corner of the restaurant had always intrigued him, and he had often imagined the moves and games that could be played there. It was a small comfort, a reminder of the life he had temporarily set aside. On that evening, when the wealthy woman had called him to play, he had felt a mix of surprise and curiosity. He did not know that she had chosen him to mock him, but he could sense her attitude and the amusement she expected. He remained polite, not out of fear or submission, but out of a calm self-respect that had been shaped by years of quiet endurance. He knew his skill even if others did not, and he allowed himself to trust in that knowledge. As he prepared to play, he thought back to the countless hours he had spent learning chess tactics, reading about famous players, and practicing endgames in his small room years ago. He remembered the feeling of winning a difficult match, the pride that had come from careful calculation and understanding. He remembered the humility of losing and learning from mistakes. These experiences had shaped not only his skills but also his patience and resilience. He carried all of this with him, even as he stood quietly before the woman who thought she could humiliate him. The woman's friends whispered excitedly, unaware of the depth of his knowledge. They thought they were witnessing a simple display of class and arrogance. But the waiter was already planning several moves ahead, considering not only the immediate position but also the patterns that might emerge. Chess had taught him to see possibilities, to anticipate outcomes, and to remain calm under pressure. Tonight, he would not let the situation intimidate him. The first few moves were careful and measured. He responded to her openings with precision, choosing the best options not out of defiance, but out of a natural understanding of the game. Each move he made was deliberate, thought through, and executed with a quiet confidence. His eyes, calm and focused, seemed to read the board like a story unfolding, anticipating not only her plans but the potential mistakes and opportunities hidden within the position. The wealthy woman's initial amusement slowly began to fade. Her confident smile wavered slightly as she realized that the young man across from her was not making mistakes. Each move he made challenged her assumptions, and she began to experience a feeling she had rarely encountered: uncertainty. Her friends noticed it too, glancing at each other with a mix of surprise and curiosity. The waiter's calm demeanor and sharp skill were turning the tables in a way that no one had expected. As the game progressed, the waiter's past experiences quietly guided his choices. He remembered studying a particular opening that was considered risky but powerful. He had mastered its nuances and knew how to respond to common traps. He used this knowledge to guide his strategy, gradually steering the game into positions that tested the woman's understanding. She had expected an easy victory, but the young man's skill was already altering the atmosphere. His mind was like a map, connecting past experiences, practice techniques, and careful observation. He saw patterns and opportunities that others might overlook. The restaurant's other diners began to notice the intensity of the match. Some whispered about how skilled he was, others watched in fascination. The scene had become more than just a playful challenge. It was a display of talent, patience, and intelligence quietly asserting itself in a room full of wealth and status. Even as the woman tried to regain her dominance, making bold and flashy moves to assert control, the waiter anticipated and countered with calm precision. He did not react emotionally. He did not allow her mockery to disturb his focus. His years of discipline and study had taught him that confidence must be measured, patience must be maintained, and skill speaks louder than words or wealth. Each piece he moved on the board was a reminder that true ability cannot be judged by appearances. Her frustration grew as the game progressed. She had never faced an opponent who responded so calmly and skillfully. She tried to predict his moves, to force errors, but he stayed ahead, moving pieces in ways that showed not only knowledge but creativity and intuition. The tension at the table was palpable, a quiet energy that drew the attention of the entire room. People were no longer just watching a game. They were witnessing a moment where humility and intelligence quietly triumphed over arrogance. The waiter's inner world, shaped by years of experience, sacrifice, and dedication, guided his every move. He did not boast or seek recognition. His focus was entirely on the game, the challenge before him, and the quiet satisfaction of playing with skill and respect. He had learned that true strength is measured not by wealth, status, or outward appearances, but by the ability to remain calm, patient, and capable in the face of challenge. By the end of this part of the evening, the young waiter had subtly shifted the energy of the room. What had begun as an opportunity for the wealthy woman to entertain herself at his expense had become a silent demonstration of his talent and resilience. His story, known only to himself and his quiet conscience, was beginning to unfold in a way that would leave everyone watching surprised and intrigued. The foundation was set for the next moves, both on the chessboard and in the story that was about to reveal the full depth of his skill and character. The game continued, and the atmosphere in the restaurant had changed completely. At first, everyone had believed that the wealthy woman would easily win, that the waiter was just a quiet server with no real skill. But now, after several moves, it was clear that the game was different than anyone had expected. People who had been eating quietly were now watching with curiosity and surprise. The tension around the chess table was palpable, and whispers spread from table to table. The woman, who had come to mock, began to feel a small knot of unease. She had moved her pieces confidently at the beginning, smiling and teasing the waiter, making jokes about how easy it would be to defeat him. Her friends had laughed and encouraged her, expecting a simple and amusing victory. But as the waiter made his moves, carefully and deliberately, she realized that he was not making mistakes. Each move he made had a purpose, a strategy that she could not easily predict. His calm and focused eyes seemed to look straight through the board, seeing patterns and possibilities that were invisible to her. She tried to regain control, shifting her pieces boldly, hoping that a sudden aggressive move would shake him. But the waiter responded calmly, countering her strategy with skillful precision. The room grew quieter, and the people around the table watched with increasing amazement. Some leaned forward in their chairs, curious to see what would happen next. They had come to the restaurant for dinner, but now they were witnessing a game that was turning into a silent battle of minds. As the game progressed, the waiter's movements became more confident. He was not rushed, and he did not allow the woman's smirks or her jokes to distract him. Every move was deliberate, a result of careful thought and years of practice. The woman's friends began to exchange nervous glances. Their laughter had faded, replaced by a mixture of surprise and intrigue. They had expected entertainment at the expense of the waiter, but instead, they were witnessing something much more impressive. Skill, patience, and intelligence quietly commanding attention. The woman's confidence began to waver. She had always been in control in social situations, used to having the power to influence or embarrass others. But now, across the chessboard, she faced someone who was unaffected by her status or wealth. The waiter's calm presence and clear strategy were forcing her to think carefully. She realized that she could not rely on arrogance or charm to win this game. It was her first time facing someone whose mind was as strong as or stronger than her own expectations. The waiter's strategy was subtle but powerful. He did not rush for victory or try to show off. Each move was thoughtful, and he anticipated the woman's responses. He saw potential traps and avoided them, guiding the game toward positions where he had control. He had learned long ago that patience and careful observation often mattered more than quick action. The board became a reflection of his life. Calm, deliberate, and precise, even when faced with challenges and unpredictability. The woman moved her queen in an attempt to create a bold advantage, hoping to force him into a mistake. But the waiter anticipated the move, responding with a countermove that neutralized her plan. She paused, studying the board with a growing sense of disbelief. The initial amusement she had felt at the start of the game was gone, replaced by focus and tension. The people around the table whispered quietly among themselves, sensing that the game had shifted. What had begun as a simple display of power and social superiority was now a test of true skill and intelligence. The waiter's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the woman's nervous energy. She had relied on mockery and social influence to assert control, but now she was confronted with quiet competence and resilience. The difference between them was evident to everyone watching. Some diners nodded to themselves, recognizing that the waiter's skill and experience were impressive and unexpected. Others leaned closer, eager to see how the game would unfold. With each passing move, the woman felt a growing tension in her chest. She had not anticipated facing someone who could challenge her so effectively. Her mind raced, trying to anticipate the waiter's next moves, but he always seemed one step ahead. It was as if he could see the board in layers, understanding the consequences of each action long before they happened. The people watching sensed this too, and the whispers of admiration grew. The waiter, quiet and polite, had transformed the game into a demonstration of intelligence and patience. At one point, the woman attempted a risky strategy, moving several pieces in a bold sequence. She hoped that the surprise would give her the upper hand. But the waiter calmly responded, reading the position and executing a counter that not only protected his pieces, but placed her in a position of vulnerability. The woman's hands trembled slightly as she considered her options. She had always been used to controlling situations, but now she was forced to follow, to react, and to question her own assumptions. Her friends exchanged uneasy glances. The playful mockery they had enjoyed at the start of the evening was gone. They were witnessing a reversal of expectations, where skill and composure mattered more than status or confidence. The waiter's quiet authority over the game was commanding attention, drawing admiration even from those who had initially expected him to fail. Each calculated move demonstrated intelligence that could not be bought or faked. The waiter's focus never wavered. He had learned to remain calm under pressure, to trust his knowledge and experience, and to make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. The woman, in contrast, began to feel the weight of the situation. Her usual confidence and social power had no influence over the chessboard. She realized, perhaps for the first time in a long while, that status and wealth could not guarantee success against true skill and determination. As the game moved toward the middle stages, the room's energy shifted completely. Diners who had been quietly enjoying their meals were now captivated by the chess match. The waiter's subtle mastery of the game had turned a simple interaction into a moment of intrigue and suspense. People whispered in amazement, appreciating the patience, skill, and focus that the young man demonstrated. Even the wealthy woman could not deny the impressive talent across from her. The young waiter's moves became increasingly strategic, forcing the woman to consider each choice carefully. She realized that he was not simply reacting to her. He was guiding the game, creating opportunities and controlling the pace. The tension in her expression grew as she understood that victory was not guaranteed. She had underestimated him, and it was a lesson in humility and respect. The waiter's eyes never left the board. He did not glance at her face or the reactions of the crowd. His focus was entirely on the game, the position of the pieces, and the possibilities that lay ahead. It was a quiet strength, an unspoken confidence that spoke volumes without words. The room sensed it, and even the woman felt the impact of his composure and skill. This was no longer a game to mock. It was a challenge that demanded attention and respect. With each move, the game became more complex and engaging. The woman tried to maintain her composure, to project confidence and control, but the quiet determination of the waiter was evident to everyone around. People leaned forward in their chairs, captivated by the unfolding drama. The game had become a story of intellect, patience, and skill, revealing the depth of the waiter's abilities and the unexpected twists of a situation that had begun with mockery. By the end of this part of the evening, the board reflected not just a game but a shift in understanding. The wealthy woman had learned that appearances can be deceiving, and that true talent and patience can quietly command attention and respect. The waiter had demonstrated that humility, focus, and skill are more powerful than arrogance or social status. The story was far from over, but the first signs of a stunning reversal were clear. The anticipation of the next moves filled the room with suspense, leaving everyone watching eager to see how this extraordinary match would conclude. The game had reached a point where the tension at the table was almost tangible. Every diner in the restaurant seemed to have noticed the quiet but intense battle unfolding in the corner. The wealthy woman, who had started the evening full of confidence and amusement, now found herself deeply focused and slightly anxious. She had realized that she was facing someone far more skilled than she had imagined. The waiter, calm and composed, continued to play with a quiet authority that drew respect from everyone watching. The woman leaned over the board, her eyes scanning the positions carefully. She moved her rook boldly, trying to open up an attack, but the waiter anticipated her move perfectly. He countered immediately, placing his pieces in a way that blocked her strategy and simultaneously created opportunities for his own. There was a subtle elegance to his moves, a balance between defense and offense that spoke of experience and thoughtfulness. He had not needed to rush. His patience and planning were beginning to show their power. As she considered her next move, the woman could feel the weight of the situation pressing on her. She had underestimated him, and now she was realizing the true skill and intelligence of someone she had initially thought to mock. Her fingers hovered over the pieces, but her mind raced, trying to predict his next move. The diners around the table leaned closer, sensing the drama that had shifted entirely. What began as a playful game had become a lesson in humility and strategy. The waiter's eyes remained steady on the board, never flicking to her face or the reactions of the surrounding crowd. He was entirely absorbed in the game, each move carefully calculated. His calm presence created a contrast with the woman's growing anxiety. He did not boast or make comments. His skill spoke through his actions alone, and it was becoming clear to everyone that he was in control. The woman tried to regain the upper hand, moving her bishop to threaten his pieces. It was a clever attempt, designed to force him into a defensive position. But the waiter saw through the plan. With a single, precise move, he neutralized her threat and placed her in a position that limited her options. She paused, her confident smile fading into a look of concentration mixed with concern. For the first time, she felt uncertain and realized that her social status and wealth could not influence this game. Her friends watched in astonishment, whispers spreading as they realized the game had turned completely. The young waiter, who had been quiet and unassuming, was now demonstrating skill and intelligence that had captured everyone's attention. His every move was deliberate, showing not only knowledge but also intuition and patience. The room seemed to hold its breath as the tension built, each play more critical than the last. The woman tried a bold maneuver, moving her queen aggressively across the board in an attempt to regain control. It was a risky strategy, one that could either lead to a decisive advantage or expose her to vulnerability. The waiter's eyes flicked to the board, analyzing the implications of her move. Without hesitation, he responded with a counter that was both defensive and assertive. He repositioned his pieces to protect key positions while simultaneously creating threats that the woman could not ignore. The dynamics of the game had shifted entirely. The initial mockery and playful attitude were gone, replaced by focus, respect, and tension. The diners around the table sensed the drama and leaned in, captivated by the unexpected display of skill. The waiter's calmness and precision created an invisible force that drew attention and admiration. The woman, who had begun the evening with a sense of superiority, was now facing a challenge she could not control with charm or confidence alone. As the game moved closer to its climax, the woman made several moves in quick succession, attempting to create traps and force mistakes. The waiter remained unflustered, each move carefully calculated to respond to her strategy while guiding the game toward a position of advantage. He had learned long ago that patience, observation, and understanding were more powerful than speed or showiness. His actions now reflected the wisdom and discipline built over years of practice and quiet perseverance. The woman's energy shifted from amusement to tension. She realized that she had been drawn into a situation far more serious than she had intended. Every piece she moved was met with a calm, precise response from the waiter. The diners could feel the intensity building, the quiet drama unfolding silently across the chessboard. What had started as a playful game of mockery was now a display of intellect, strategy, and respect. The waiter's moves became increasingly strategic, forcing the woman to consider her choices carefully. She felt a growing pressure as she noticed the limitations in her position. Each attempt to regain control was met with skillful counters. The room watched silently, captivated by the unfolding story, realizing that the young man's quiet determination and skill had turned the game into a lesson that could not be ignored. Finally, a critical moment arrived. The waiter made a move that was subtle yet powerful, placing her in a position where victory seemed out of reach. The woman's eyes widened as she recognized the brilliance of the play. She had underestimated him from the beginning, assuming that social power could compensate for skill. Now, confronted with the quiet mastery of the young waiter, she felt a mix of awe and humility. Her confidence had shifted to respect, as she realized that appearances could be deceiving. The surrounding diners held their breath, sensing the tension and the impending conclusion. The waiter, calm and unassuming, did not let the anticipation distract him. His focus remained on the board, each move deliberate and precise. The woman, for the first time in a long while, was forced to confront her own assumptions and the reality of skill over status. The moment was intense, silent, and profound, a quiet battle that transcended social roles. The waiter continued to maneuver, guiding the game toward its final stages. The woman moved cautiously, realizing that every choice mattered. The restaurant was quiet, all attention focused on the unfolding drama. The game had become more than a simple match. It was a story of patience, strategy, and quiet power. Each move by the waiter demonstrated control, intelligence, and composure, while the woman learned the value of humility and respect in a way she had never experienced before. As the final moves approached, the tension in the room was nearly unbearable. Every diner watched, captivated by the skill and precision on display. The woman's expressions revealed a mixture of concentration, surprise, and growing respect. She had started the evening believing she could mock and dominate, but now she was confronted with an opponent who could not be underestimated. The game had shifted completely, and the young waiter's calm authority was undeniable. Finally, the waiter made his decisive move, placing the pieces in a position that left no room for escape. The woman froze, her confidence shattered, replaced by awe. The room remained silent for a moment, absorbing the quiet power of the play. Then, one by one, soft murmurs of admiration began to ripple through the diners. The match had reached its stunning conclusion, a moment that none of them would soon forget. The wealthy woman looked up at him, a mixture of surprise and respect in her eyes. She realized that she had underestimated him, that skill and patience mattered more than status or mockery. The young waiter, calm and composed, simply nodded and moved his pieces back into their resting positions. He had not gloated or celebrated. His satisfaction was quiet and personal, rooted in the mastery of his skill and the demonstration of his quiet strength. The game had ended, but the impact remained. The restaurant had witnessed more than just a chess match. They had seen a lesson in humility, respect, and the power of skill and patience. The wealthy woman had learned an unexpected lesson. The diners had been captivated, and the young waiter had quietly demonstrated the depth of his talent and character. The evening had transformed from a moment of mockery to a story of intelligence, perseverance, and quiet triumph, setting the stage for the final part of this remarkable story. After the final move, a quiet tension hung in the air for a few moments. The restaurant, filled with diners who had been watching in rapt attention, seemed to hold its collective breath. The wealthy woman sat frozen, staring at the chessboard, her earlier confidence replaced by a mix of surprise and newfound respect. She had intended to mock the young waiter, to demonstrate her superiority in front of her friends and the crowd. Instead, she had been humbled by his quiet skill and calm authority. It was a moment she would not forget. The diners around the table began to murmur softly, whispering about the unexpected turn of events. Some clapped lightly, impressed by the young waiter's strategy and composure. Others looked at the woman, sensing her humility and the lesson she had just learned. The room had transformed from a place of casual dining to a theater of human intelligence and personal growth. People were captivated not by wealth or status, but by the display of talent, patience, and respect. The wealthy woman finally broke the silence, her voice low and sincere. She thanked him quietly, acknowledging the skill and thoughtfulness he had shown. There was no sarcasm, no attempt to regain control or hide her embarrassment. She had recognized the truth. The game was not about who had money or power, but about who had focus, experience, and patience. Her friends looked at her in surprise, seeing a side of her they rarely witnessed. A side that was willing to admit when someone else was better. The young waiter, as calm and humble as ever, nodded politely and smiled faintly. He did not boast, nor did he draw attention to his victory. He simply returned to his duties with the quiet dignity that had always defined him. For him, the game was not about showing off. It was about engaging with something he loved and demonstrating skill through actions rather than words. His satisfaction was quiet, rooted in his own understanding of the challenge and his ability to rise to it. The wealthy woman's perspective began to shift that evening. She realized that she had underestimated people based on appearances, social status, and outward behavior. The young waiter, quiet and unassuming, had revealed a depth of talent and intelligence that could not be judged from the surface. She reflected on her own behavior, the casual mockery, and the assumptions she had made. The lesson was clear. Humility, respect, and recognition of others' skills were far more important than asserting dominance or seeking entertainment at someone else's expense. Over the next few days, the story of the chess game spread quietly through the city. People who had been in the restaurant shared the tale of the young waiter who had calmly defeated a wealthy and confident woman. The narrative was not about humiliation or embarrassment. It was about skill, intelligence, and the quiet power of competence. It inspired conversations about respect, humility, and the value of talent over wealth. The young waiter remained humble, continuing his work without seeking recognition or reward. But the impact of that evening lingered in the memories of everyone who had witnessed it. The wealthy woman herself made a personal choice after the game. She reached out to the young waiter, not with a sense of superiority, but with genuine interest and respect. She expressed her admiration for his skill and the grace with which he had conducted himself. They spoke briefly about the game, strategies, and experiences, and she listened intently to his insights. For the first time, she engaged with someone purely on the basis of talent and thought, without the filter of social status or wealth. It was a humbling and enlightening experience for her. In the weeks that followed, the woman's attitude toward people in general began to change. She became more thoughtful, less judgmental, and more willing to recognize the strengths of others. She noticed that people who were quiet or unassuming often had remarkable skills and insights. The chess game had taught her a lesson she could not have learned through wealth or influence alone. She became a little more careful with her words and a little more generous with her respect. Her friends noticed the change and sometimes teased her gently about it, but even they admired the growth. The young waiter continued his life quietly, performing his job with care and respect for the people he served. He did not seek recognition or fame, but the experience had reinforced his belief in the value of patience, skill, and humility. He had always known his own abilities and had learned long ago that true competence speaks louder than words or social power. The chess match had been a reminder that actions, not appearances, reveal true talent. One day, as the wealthy woman returned to the restaurant, she asked to play chess again, not to mock, but to learn. She wanted to understand the game better and to engage with the young waiter as an equal, respecting his skill and experience. They played, this time with mutual appreciation and focus on the game rather than social posturing. Their interactions were calm and thoughtful, a reflection of the lessons learned and the respect earned through that one remarkable evening. The story of the chess match became a quiet legend among the diners and staff. People remembered the night when humility and skill triumphed over arrogance and assumptions. It was a story of respect, patience, and recognition of true talent, demonstrating that the most powerful victories are often silent, achieved not through force or wealth, but through quiet mastery and dedication. The young waiter had shown that true skill and patience could command attention and respect without the need for words or displays of power. In the end, the wealthy woman carried the lesson with her, understanding that mockery and superiority do not guarantee satisfaction or control. She learned to approach others with curiosity and respect, seeking to understand their skills and experiences. The young waiter continued to live quietly, performing his duties with care and patience, his abilities quietly shaping the perceptions of everyone who had witnessed his skill. Their story became a reminder that humility, intelligence, and quiet mastery often leave the most lasting impressions, a lesson that resonated far beyond the walls of the restaurant.